legal action.
I'm glad this book's publication wasn't prevented, and I hope it doesn't attract litigation, but I do think it is a potentially dangerous book.
Why is it dangerous?
Well, because it constructs out of a set of disparate issues a narrative about a Chinese invasion of Australia, which I think blows everything out of all proportion and may give ammunition to forces, political forces in Australia who have long been seeking to stoke fear and paranoia towards the Chinese population here in Australia.
Far-right groups have seized on silent invasion online. The Australia First Party describes it as a Bible in the struggle against Chinese imperialism. Dr Brophy says China's not alone in trying to influence Australia.
Our military alliance with the US puts a huge political constraint on us. It means that we effectively have no say when we go to war, meaning that we wage war on people who present no threat to us, such as the Iraqis, just to stay in Washington's good books.
But an expert on the history of Chinese communities in Australia says some of the ways China tries to influence Australia are unique. John Fitzgerald is a professor at Swinburne University of Technology.
These go to seeking to control and manage a large section of the Chinese Australian community, particularly those who follow religion the Communist Party doesn't approve, who are of a particular ethnic group that is having difficulties with China, those whose political beliefs don't accord with the same. So it tries to control the media and social organisations in this country.
You can't see.
Well, good afternoon. This morning I was humbled by the support of my colleagues to become the 12th leader of the New Zealand National Party. Can I just acknowledge a number of people? Can I acknowledge the Right Honourable Bill English and his wife Mary for nearly 30 years of great service to the National Party, but also to New Zealand, whether as Minister of Finance or Prime Minister, and his revolutionary work in social investment. Can I also acknowledge the other candidates in the field? National is truly blessed to have such talent in our caucus, and I have no doubt that the other contenders for the leadership of the National Party could have done the job of leader. I want to acknowledge the wider membership of the National Party as represented by Peter Goodfellow, our President here today. And the members, along with the caucus members, 56 MPs, make us the biggest, the strongest, the most successful political party in New Zealand. And I'm incredibly fortunate to have inherited a party and the leadership of a party that's in such great shape. Can I also acknowledge my Deputy Leader, the Honourable Paula Bennett, who, like me, is a proud Westie, Māori, and I'm going to really enjoy, as I have already, working with her very closely. And last, but of course not least, can I acknowledge my wife Natalie, who's been a wonderful partner to me and mother of our 3 young children, Emlyn, Harry and Jemima. Growing up in Te Atatu, West Auckland, with a Pakeha mum and Māori dad, Ruth and Heath Bridges, I never appreciated I would have this responsibility and opportunity to make such a difference to the lives of New Zealanders. I'm incredibly proud to be a Kiwi. I'm incredibly proud of this country. We have a wonderful, a great country in New Zealand. And it's because of my background and love of New Zealand that I am stepping up in this way. The National Party that I lead will do at least 3 things. Yes, we'll hold the government to account. And in that regard, we'll be firm but fair. We'll support the things that we think are taking our country forward, that are making a difference, that are providing opportunity for New Zealanders, and we'll oppose the things that we think are merely seeing us tread water and, in the worst cases, going backwards. We'll also be an alternative government in waiting, with a clear and a positive plan for the 2020s. I'm obviously not today going to lay out our plans and policies, but today's modern National Party has very strong foundations to build off from the key English government, and we will continue to develop and to modernise from those successes so we are a truly compelling choice at the next election. And thirdly, we'll continue to develop our talented team of MPs and our wider members as the strongest in New Zealand politics. We are highly energised and will be getting out and about, talking and of course listening to New Zealanders. Our MPs, and this is an advantage for our party, are in every corner of the country. And so expect to see a lot of us and to hear a lot from us. New Zealanders deserve better than a government that is merely muddling along. My focus is on ensuring New Zealand continues to be a place of great opportunities and aspiration for everyone. But this government, I believe, quite firmly takes our economy for granted. And New Zealanders know that after governments like this, it's National as the best economic managers that have to pick up the pieces. Fine words are fine, but it's actions that count. More reviews and working groups won't get us anywhere. There's no point saying that you support the regions and small businesses while you mess with employment and immigration laws. Caring for young people is pointless if you do away with policies that get them jobs. As I've said, over time, we will continue to develop positive policies for our economy and in other areas such as health, education, the environment, and law and order. We will outline our positive plans to improve New Zealanders' lives and opportunities. New Zealand deserves better than this unambitious government that's treading water. In coming weeks, National will have a reshuffle, and I will also signal in speeches what sort of leader I will be. New Zealanders, I think, have a right to know me better and also to understand National's broad direction under me. National will be about opportunity, not muddling along, about actions, not fine words and yet more reviews. We will hold this government to account and be an alternative government in waiting because New Zealanders deserve better. Thank you very much. Happy to answer questions. Look, I'm obviously pleased with the strong support I got. We have a united, strong caucus. It was 2 ballots before I was elected leader of the National Party. There was also a contest but for deputy leader of 2, and obviously Paula Bennett was elected as the leader. Beyond that, can I say, I'm not going to get into the details and do a post-mortem, but I hope that's pretty straightforward for you. Look, that's confidential to the caucus, and we're not going to get into the names and so on.
Any lack of transparency?
Can you describe what sort of leader you are going to be?
Yeah. Look, I think we all bring our backgrounds and experiences. For me, that's someone who grew up in West Auckland, who was empowered by higher education, that spent from there nearly a decade in Tauranga, in regional New Zealand, doing jury trials, serious crime, criminal trials every day. And I bring all of that with me. I think I'm going to be someone who's going to be, as I say, firm but fair with the government in Parliament and beyond in terms of their program, which I don't think is good enough for New Zealanders. But more than that, we'll be developing policies that are aspirational, that I think will be exciting over time for New Zealanders. Clearly that's about a strong economy, because we know that grows the opportunities for all New Zealanders like me when I was growing up. But also, as I've made quite clear, I'm going to be emphasising other things as well. I think the environment is clearly precious to New Zealanders. I think regions, small businesses, is something we need to make sure we're not placing burden on, and we're empowering to get ahead, because again, that creates the opportunities.
Voters.
Māori voters, yeah. Look, I'm really excited about the opportunity I've got ahead. I hope Māori are proud of me, that the National Party has elected its first Māori leader, and actually, well, no, not a first in terms of a deputy leader as well. I want to appeal to a broad cross-range of New Zealanders, because I think that's what the strength of the National Party is. So I hope Māori, who've traditionally been with New Zealand First at times, with Labour, will give us a second look. We'll think about us and what we mean and the opportunities that we present for Māori. I don't think Māori are the same today as they have been in the past. I think clearly we're seeing Māori succeed in business, both small and large, and they are as aspirational as every other New Zealander. So I'm looking forward to engaging with Māori New Zealanders as I am with a broad cross-range of society. Well, firstly, it's not fractured, it is united. You know, the reality is this. We had a leadership contest, and we all know why that is, because Bill English, after nearly 30 years of service to this Parliament, the National Party has moved on. I think it's a strength of the party the way we've done that. We frankly haven't done it the way the Labour Party would have. There's been 5 strong candidates. It's been respectful, even friendly, and I'm very confident from the messages I've already received in the caucus that we're going to get in behind myself. And we're going to be really working hard to, as I say, hold this government to account and also win in 2020. Look, I think if you look, Audrey, at all of the candidates, they're strong, as I've already acknowledged, and they've all got skills that I would want to use. So I would like to see Stephen Joyce with a very strong role. We all know his strengths, both in finance and the economy, but also, of course, in campaigning. And so there is a role for Stephen after this. I think there is a strong one for the other candidates, Judith, Amy, Mark, and the candidates. Yeah, look, it's a good question. I think the reality is I've been there before. I've been a Crown prosecutor who's done jury trials day in and day out and worked very hard, and my family, certainly Natalie, is used to that. That's also true in relation to my roles as a senior minister, where, you know, at one time I was Economic Development Minister, Communications, Transport, a Leader of the House. So we're up for this. We're excited, I think, Natalie and I, about the opportunity that lies ahead for national and for New Zealand, and presenting a more aspirational, confident, outward-looking view to this current government.
Or is that role up for grabs?
Have you had time to tell the kids that Dad's got a new job?
No, they did know I was in a contest, and they sort of understand that there's red teams, blue teams, green teams, black teams, and there are no illusions that we're on the blue team.
Up for finance, or is that role up for grabs?
Look, I think at the moment I genuinely can't say. You know, obviously I've been focused on winning the support of 56 MPs. But now, of course, we start thinking about those things. I've signalled to you quite clearly, look, in the next fortnight or so, I will have a reshuffle. I want to do that. That'll be about blending good experience, strong experience, such as Stephen has, along with bringing in new talent, because I think people see that. I can't say to you at the moment who's going to be the finance spokesman, but I am confident that Stephen will have a strong role, should he want that.
Benches about the positions that they might have in some of those new portfolios.
I've offered no one a specific portfolio. I simply haven't. And my message has been very much what I've said to you. Yeah, we need the experience. That's important, because you want to see that we have the heft that we've had in 9 years in government. But what's also true is that we can't go into the next election with the same plans that we've had. We can't do things just as we have. We can't say to voters that nothing's changed. We also need to continue to modernise, and new talent will absolutely have to be part of that. If you look at our caucus and the way that's happened over the last 9 years, we've been good at doing that, and I suppose really it's a continuity of bringing through that fresh talent.
You, under your leadership, you've said that you're not going to talk about policy details, but is everything up for review in terms of your manifesto?
I can be clear, no. We're not going to have a full policy review. I don't fundamentally think we got things wrong in terms of the economy. You know, people understand. This is a government that takes that for granted. They've been inherited a very strong legacy. Things are going well at the moment, but they're doing things wrong in that area. There'll be a basic continuity there in terms of us being the party that are strong economic managers and do a good job in that. But I have said to you, as I said to my colleagues in the lead up to this contest today, that I think we do need to just look at our emphasis in some areas. I've mentioned to you the environment, I've mentioned to you the regions. If I think about the regions, I don't think it's a case of us getting it wrong. If you look at when we went out of office, 13 of 15 regions were growing, and actually most of those growing strongly. But it's an emphasis, and as we look at what this government is doing, we'll of course be wanting to compare and contrast that with our policies, refreshing and modernising. Because I think if we do that, we go into this next election very strong.
How hard do you think it's...
What would you do differently?
Look, obviously, as I've said, that's something I'd like to outline in more detail in due course and talk more about. I think at the moment it's really simply a case of not trying to give you a manifesto today, but make clear that that's going to be a focus. I think that's the best that I can do on that.
Do you think it's going to be to win the 2020 election, and are you willing to say today that you'll resign if you don't get National back into power?
I think we're the underdog. I think that that's true, but I think what is also true is that we have a unique opportunity as a very strong opposition to make this a one-term government. I think that we're a strong opposition and they're a weak government. I've already highlighted that in terms of being quite experimental. Not having done the hard yards over 9 years, they fundamentally don't have a strong program, and we're treading water as a country. So I think we can win. I think it's about holding them to account. I think it's about modernising our policy platform so we're exciting in 2020. And I think it's about our team of 56 MPs where we have a real advantage in terms of talent and breadth and experience, getting out and about and selling our messages and listening to New Zealanders.
The second part of that is, are you willing to resign?
Look, obviously I couldn't say that today. I mean, there's so many imponderables there. I'm excited today, give me a day, to be the leader of the National Party and to be really looking forward at the opportunities we have as a country if we're elected government in the next election. Obviously, there's a lot of caveats involved there. Let me be very, very clear. If you think about a New Zealand First, I think fundamentally it's a question for them. Would they go with us? Well, I think we know the answer to that, certainly at the last election. And I think it's a question of whether they would revisit that rather than us. In terms of the Green Party, I think if they were in true environmental party that wasn't focused on other bits and bobs, actually they could be a party that we could work with and work with strongly. We've showed in the past that we're happy to do that in terms of home insulation and other areas. They've got some real tests, I think, the Kermit being one. That's a bill, a law going before Parliament from the Honourable Dr Nick Smith that would be one of the biggest marine reserves in the world. Well, are they going to work with us and vote with us on that or not? I think if they do, that shows some promise that actually they are prepared to think independently. But at the moment, you'd have to say they look a lot more like Jacinda Ardern, Winston Peters poodles.
You've got some veteran MPs in your caucus.
Does she stand by all her statements? Well, in the 20 minutes after this, I'm going to give that some serious consideration, Audrey. I think, though, I'd like to ask her about that regional fund. I think I stated to you very clearly my view on that, which is all very well to date. They've frankly done nothing, basically, that we hadn't done. Shane Jones has literally picked up to a policy and initiative things that we were doing, and the slush fund, as they work that out, is coming. But there's no point throwing money around if what you're also going to do is be bad on immigration so that businesses can't get workers. You're going to mess around with the employment laws. So I think that will be a focus, possibly one or two other areas as well.
And when you stood up to be leader, you mentioned that you wanted to see a new generation. Are you going to clear out some of the dead wood from your caucus, some of those veteran MPs?
I don't think we have dead wood, but I think what is true is over time, just what I've said to you. Yeah, we need experience, we need heft, but we need to ensure that new talent is coming through. That's our strength. I think if you look at the Labour Party, they didn't do that. I mean, you look at the Clark years, fundamentally she had the same cabinet at the end of her time that she had at the start, other than those that fell through scandal. We didn't do that. It was a very different cabinet at the end of 9 years. And that's the same approach I want to bring. You'll see that and you'll get a sense of that in my reshuffle. Again, can I say, it's not about being radical. It's not about doing what you were asking me about. But I think it is about, over time, bringing through that talent. 56 great MPs who, person to person, have wide experiences. They don't come from the narrow sectors that actually you'd say certainly Labour and the Greens do. And I want to bring that talent over time through.
How are you going to take on Jacinda head-to-head? What's your approach for that?
I think it's pretty simple. Jacinda and I know each other well from our breakfast TV days, but I don't think it's about the leader. I think it's about, or just about the leader. I think it's about everything that's around her. And I think ultimately you say Jacinda's a nice person, a good person who's well-intentioned and is trying to do her best in a very significant job. But what's also true is that under that you've got an accidental, experimental government that really ultimately, and we see it in Parliament, doesn't have laws coming through, doesn't have policies coming through that actually make a difference, that provide opportunities for New Zealander. We can do better than that. And so we will, as I say, pretty simply, make it quite clear, hold them to account in terms of what they do and aren't doing, present over time, not in day one, how we'll be different. Obviously, you know the National Party, you know our values. They aren't going to change, but there will be some modernisation there and getting that team out and about. I think that's a winning strategy. I think that's a strategy where, as I say, although we're underdog, we can be in a position to win in 2020. And as I said to my colleagues this morning, that is incredibly exciting. It's the opportunity to shape New Zealand in the 2020s and to do that so well for New Zealanders.
Are you sending a message to your MPs?
I haven't considered that in terms of those specific questions. I don't think it's a relationship that needs rebuilding. I think, as I said, really you've got a situation where Māori traditionally have voted Labour. At times they've veered off to some other parties, New Zealand first, but that's been the situation. But I sense that Māoridom is changing. It is much more aspirational than the Labour Party. It wants the best for its children. It wants to see Māori in New Zealand is doing incredibly well in all spheres, whether it's business or other areas besides. And that's the vision I'd like to sell to them. I don't think you'd say that's more or less engagement than we've had, because if you take a number of our senior ministers, including me, with iwi, but of course Māori all over New Zealand, we've been engaging. But we've certainly got to keep up that energetic approach and sell them our vision for New Zealand and a better future here.
Last election, 11,500 Māori roll voters party voted National, but nearly 50% gave their candidate vote to the Māori Party. How do you plan to build, retain or represent those interests there?
I think it's too early to sort of get into that. I couldn't give you a strong answer in terms of how we'd approach that. I go back to really the comments I've made, but we've got 2.5 years to think through some of those things. Yeah, Andrea.
Are you sending a message, just going back to what you said earlier about the reshuffle, are you sending a message to your senior MPs that it might be time to stand aside to let some of that new talent come through?
No, I don't think it's a subtle message that I'm giving here. It's literally word for word what I've said. Yes to experience and keeping that, but yes, over time bringing through talent. And I think the best answer you'll get will be when that reshuffle does happen, you'll get a very clear sense of that.
The party blocked off media access to the floor, put up some partitions, and then you won't say who the contested deputy is. Why the lack of transparency?
Look, I think ultimately this is a personal, important of course, but decision that members of Parliament have to make. They know us as characters very well. I think that's fundamentally why we do a better job than Labour, where they go out wider than that, and you've got there 56 MPs who know us very well. But the reality, and there are internal processes that made those rules, but the reality now is it's intrinsically public. We're here, you know that the outcomes on a second ballot. I was elected, you know the deputy leader, and so I understand why some of you have those views. I think it's fair enough, though. We did what we did, and caucus came to that decision, and now we've got a clear result. Yeah.
Final minute, do you expect the public to put you in your job?
Absolutely. As a Member of Parliament for Tauranga, as a caucus, I am there at the goodwill of the New Zealand public. And you'll see me demonstrate that day in and day out. I want to make sure that that's the approach that I continue with. Sure. Yeah, I think New Zealand's moved on, we have, and obviously it's working very well. I mean, I think what I would also say to you, though, is if you look across my record, there's the conscience issues where I make no secret of the fact I have been pretty conservative on those socially. Some of my colleagues have. Of course, we're a broad church, as I keep on saying, where there's others who've been in a very different position, and that's fantastic because that's the diversity of New Zealand. But I also say to you what I said when I was first into this I put my hat into the ring for this position. And that's that actually across a range of economic and other social issues, I've been incredibly progressive. I think I've done a very strong job, I do say myself as Transport Minister, into EVs, into new mobility, into public transport, into cycleways, all things that this government will keep. As the Energy Minister, I led a very significant push into renewables, which made a difference, saw us go from in the 70s to well over 80% renewables in this country in terms of our energy and electricity. So, we can try and typecast people. I hope that I'm not that predictable, but I do think if you look at me, I've, across a range of issues, shown that I'm capable of surprises and thinking things through.
Social issues.
Look, I've got plenty of regrets, so I think I've made my position on that one itself clear. Yeah.
Today showed that greenhouse gas emissions raised by 24% over 25 years. A large part of that is National's legacy. Do you accept responsibility for that?
I wouldn't argue that's National's legacy. I think the reality is we tried to do things, but what happened, of course, is Paris. We signed up to that. We're not going to resolve from that. I was there, in fact. And over time, we need to do more and more. I mean, at a level, you'd say there's a broad consensus on that. But of course, there'll be a lot of detail under that. We will have to argue about that. As I say, I think you can expect in due course later this year that I will be talking more about these things. I think on day one, though, it's not appropriate or right for me to sort of hem myself in, if you like, with the detail, but rest assured it will come.
Dave, your reshuffle, Mr. Bridges?
I think so. And I don't think that's actually just about me. As I said, it's about a team. I think, yeah, we live in an age where people do want to know their leaders. They don't want to see what they're about, and I'm open for that and I'm up for that. And I want to make sure that I'm giving New Zealanders very quickly actually a real sense of who I am, where I come from, what I'm about and the style of leadership I have. But more than that, we've got a really strong team.
About your personal views and your views on marriage equality. You just said you'd made your position clear.
Yeah.
What is your position, and do you have any regrets about not supporting that, and what will your approach to social issues rather than environmental issues be? I don't think per se I have regrets, but look, I wouldn't change where we are now, and so in that regard, I suppose I would change my vote. I think I've made quite clear, as I say, and what I'm saying there is, yeah, I've been socially conservative on that issue, on euthanasia, where I have concerns, and other ones as well. But the reality is, this is the party of Crusher Collins and Nikki Kay, of Simon Bridges, of Chris Bishop. These are not driving aspects of what I want to do. My vision for New Zealand is a vision where we are upbeat, aspirational. We are doing everything we can to create opportunities for New Zealanders. And I think that's in stark contrast to this muddling through government. Hey, thanks very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Julie Wood will tell the story of Louis Braille, the little French boy who invented the system more than a century ago. And Julie joins me on the phone now from Dunedin. Hello there.
Hi, Jesse.
Sounds like a pretty fascinating story, this story of Louis.
It is a fascinating story, and it's one that I fell in love with when I learnt Braille as a 35-year-old adult, because I knew about Braille like most people.